What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I am your host, Josh Culler, and today is Book Review Friday. Today we got Tom Olson back with us. Welcome back, Tom.
Hey, Josh. How you doing?
Good. It's been a while, but we've had some guests on the show in the previous episodes, and some awesome guests. And I know Tom chimed in on a couple of those podcasts. And we the last podcast that we had that came out last Saturday was with a guy named Roger Blankenship that. We actually had Tom on his radio show. It's called Flipping America, so you guys make sure you go check it out. I believe it's on our iHeartMedia. So Flipping America with Roger Blankenship, and we had Tom on that radio show. So today, book review. Today we're going to talk about Outliers, the Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. I've never heard of this book, except for Tom's talked about it a couple times, and I even heard you and Jared talking about it, and Jared said something to the effect of that this is one of those books that's just kind of under the rock and not really a lot of people know about it, but it's a great book. So I'm excited to hear what this is about. So if you want to jump into it,
awesome.
We can just get right into it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is probably one of my top 10 books when it comes to life-changing, kind of the way you think. So, you know, I always say if you change the way you think, you change what you do. If you change what you do, you change the results. And that's really what we want. But this book kind of like adds another little twist to that. And like I said, it's probably one of my favorite entrepreneur books. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're looking for, to be the next big thing or to be the next Bill Gates or to be the next whatever, I definitely highly recommend this book. It starts actually with a Bible verse, which if you guys know us, we think that good success comes from thinking about God's word and meditating on it and actually doing what it says. And it starts, the whole book starts with Matthew 25:29. It says, "For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath." And really, like, the whole book at the end of the day really does talk about we've all been given something, whether it's been time, talents, or treasure. We've all been given something, and everything that we have is a result of what we've been given. So I think I just want to start the whole conversation about this book with really thinking about what it is that we've been given. I mean, first of all, most of you that are listening live in America, live in the land of really luxury, live in a land that we have tremendous opportunity, and a lot of times we don't take advantage of it. So, like I said, I really love the fact that it talks about being thankful for what you've been given. So, outliers, if you just look at the whole word outliers in the book, it really talks about a lot of different people. And so what is an outlier to begin with? It's men and women that do things that are out of the ordinary. They're trailblazers. They're people that are kind of a little different than what the rest of the group is, but normally these people are people that have tremendous success in some way, shape, or form. And in good success, we always want to talk about like how to have the right kind of success and how to have success, right? So
could an outlier equal an entrepreneur?
It could, but an outlier is really not just an entrepreneur. It's an entrepreneur who's willing to again, part of it is just the circumstance in which you're in. A lot of people don't actually have the actual opportunities to do things that everybody doesn't have the same opportunity. Right. You have been given a specific opportunity, and I think you have to be ready for that opportunity, but you also have to be willing to put in the hard work that it takes in order to make the opportunity expand and grow and be that outlier that actually makes sense. I think something else I love about it is the beginning story. Before even chapter 1, it talks about this place called Rosetta, and there was these doctors, and they were doing studies on patients, and they were finding out that somehow this city called Rosetta in Pennsylvania, which was basically mostly Romanian, Italian people that had moved from Italy to the United States, and a lot of them had settled in this same exact area. What they found out is that the only way that people were dying was because of old age. They weren't dying from cancer. They weren't dying from all these other issues, and they tried to like narrow it down and try to figure out why these people were healthy. And so kind of along the lines of what I was talking about already, like these people were put into this city that people weren't dying. It was a community. It was a great opportunity for those people because they weren't dying. But so they looked into it and they said, okay, so let's look at why these people aren't dying. So the very first thing, what do most doctors do? They look at your diet. So they looked at your diet and they said, okay, maybe they're eating certain foods, and maybe that's why they're not getting sick. And they looked at that, and then they looked at other areas around the same area, other cities. I know Nazareth was another little city. That's kind of funny. I know it's Nazareth, and it's another little town called I forgot what it was called now. Dang it. But other cities right around the same exact area. Dang it. But they were finding out that all these people, it had nothing to do with their diet. It had to do with so then the next thing that they looked at was maybe their workout regime. Maybe they worked a certain way because they were in the hills, and they thought to themselves, maybe some way, it was because of their job and of the hard work that they had to do, hard manual labor. And then they looked at other cities around the same area, and for some reason it wasn't the case. The other thing was that there was no suicide, there was no drug addiction, there was no there was very, very little crime in this area. The people didn't have ulcers. They didn't have all these other little ailments. So after looking at their diet, after looking at maybe the way that they exercised, that wasn't the case. They looked at maybe it was where they were from. Maybe it had to do with they were from a certain place in southern Italy, and those specific people from Rosetta were just healthier because of where they came from, or who they act, not where they came from, but where like genes, actually having specific genes. But they found out that the same people that had moved from Little Italy in Italy were in other areas of the country, and they were having alcoholism, and they were dying younger, and they were having cancer, and they were having issues like that. And so they went through all these different things, and they just tried to figure out why in the world this city, all these people from this one community were not dying. And what they found out was they actually had to go to the community to find out what was the reason. And the guy said, I remember going to Rosetta for the first time, and you would see 3 generational family meals. So you'd see people with 3 generations sitting down and having a meal. You would see the bakeries up and down with people walking the streets, sitting in their porches, and actually having meals with each other, talking to each other, helping their neighbors. The other thing that they found out in this city was that the way that the city was constructed, there was not really a big difference between the rich and the poor. So there wasn't this judgmental spirit either way. People weren't worried about somebody else being rich, and people weren't worried about other people not necessarily having money. There was a great community and a great way for people to love each other and be accepted, and have that feeling of acceptance, and not have this feeling of being judged all the time. So they actually had to go back to the medical community and basically tell them, hey, everything that you've been telling everybody is crap. Everything that you've been telling people about, you have to eat healthy in order to be healthy, you have to exercise in order to be healthy, you have to have certain genes to be healthy. It really had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the fact of where they came from and the community that they lived in. And I just think it's just, to me, I love it because it's part of our core values, community, and the fact that we need to be there for each other and have an understanding and not be judgmental, and break bread with each other. And I just think that, I think if you just read that part, just the beginning, it's just the introduction, it's about 4 pages, this entire book would actually be worth it for you. So that was the first thing about this book that I think really stood out to me. I think it's just awesome, it's amazing. And then it kind of goes into the Matthew effect, And it really talks about like kind of where you come from. So this kind of talks about the hockey teams and how hockey teams go from like when they're junior age kids into these leagues, and then if you're a star, you'll go into this other league, and then you'll kind of just keep raising up into different leagues. And once you can actually get to major junior A, this is kind of like the top of the pyramid, and this is where they really choose the next level of hockey players. And it really talks about like it's not necessarily about your team, it's about individual effort and the individual merit that happens in order for you to move on. Because it's not like you're just taking the best team. It's not like Little League baseball where it's just the best team. It's like now you have the superstar league, and so people pick from the superstars, out of all the different teams, and then you even pick like superstars from that team. And it's kind of like how we choose like our major athletes right now with even around the world with soccer and hockey and Olympic sports, all are kind of like are kind of chosen the same way. And a lot of it though has to do with where they came from. A lot of it has to do with the opportunities that they were given. Their parents put them in this at a young age, and they paid for and maybe extra coaching or extra teaching or whatever at a young age in order to be able to help the kids get to that certain level at a certain time. And I think that's huge. Most of us are not self-made men or women. We've been given opportunities because of where we've come from, because of our parents, because of we live in a certain country or community, or even a certain time. If you go along the rest of the book, it even talks about 25 of the world's wealthiest people that have ever lived, period, all came from a time period in the United States with like about a 10-year time period, because they all came from that time period. And I'm sure that we'll have more of those come in the future. It's not like that's going to be the only time period that ever exists that it's super awesome to be able to make money. But so they all come from a certain maybe specific community, but it really ends up being an opportunity, and I think that's kind of what it comes from. Also, I think it also really kind of talks about just, yes, people are given opportunity. So it talks about the Beatles, for instance, and you may or may not like the Beatles, and that's fine. But it talks about how much they had to work. So they were given this opportunity in Hamburg, and this opportunity basically was they had to go and they had to play at these clubs, and they played like 5 nights in a row, and then they drove all the way back to where they were from, which was like a 2-day trip. And during a 18-month period of time, they actually showed they had 270 nights that they worked in an 18-month period of time, which is an absolute crazy amount of schedule. They played over 1,200 times for 11 to 1,300 hours. They actually played in 18 months, which is just an astronomical amount of times to play. Don't even talk about practice or any of that kind of stuff. So it kind of talks about what the Outliers says is the 10,000 hour rule. Basically, it means that you have to do something for 10,000 hours in order to actually get really good at enough to make an impact. You can't just, and this is something that bothers me quite often. I'm 40 years old, and a lot of people think that, hey, I know how to do this, or I know how to do that. I know how to, I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're a contractor. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur. I don't care whatever it is. A lot of times people think that since they can do something and that they might think that they're good at it, that all of a sudden they can go out and they can make a huge impact. And I really just don't believe it. You have to earn the right to be able to be in that position. Just because you know how to do something doesn't give you the right. And so just like the Beatles, like it took them, 18 months of working just non-stop basically before they even got another show. And it really wasn't until they had played over 10,000 hours before they actually had any kind of big break. So you have to be willing to you have to understand that yes, you have to have the opportunity, but you also have to be willing to put the work in and put the time in before you actually have any kind of real success.
And this is where I feel like a lot of potential is lost with people, because there was probably hundreds of other bands like the Beatles, if not better than the Beatles, that were probably out there, but we will never hear their name or their music ever, because they weren't willing to put that much time and effort into what they wanted to do. And the reason why the Beatles are so well known is because of that fact that you just stated there. And that's incredible. And I feel like a lot of people just fail because they feel like, okay, I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I do this for 8 to 10 hours a day, maybe even more, and nobody's listening to me. Well, it's because you haven't put enough time into it. And that's where a lot of patience comes in. You have to be patient, but still put the work in. And I've always believed in, if you can couple patience with hard work, that's when you become like the ultimate person in your space, whether it's you're a real estate investor or whether you're an author. You know, we talk a lot about books. If you're an author, I mean, it's just putting in that 10,000 hours sounds ridiculous, but you got to do it. Like, there's no choice. You have to do it if you want to become we call it a subject matter expert in your field of work. I mean, that's the bottom line. So
yeah, absolutely. And so it talks about another man, Bill Joy, who actually went to the University of Michigan. And it talks about, and this was a guy who wrote so many. I mean, he was a co-founder of Silicon Valley firm Sun Microsoft Systems, which, if you guys know, I mean that's just a gigantic company. And he was given an opportunity. So let's talk about the opportunity first by Michigan's the University of Michigan, that they left their computer systems and their computer places that you could go and do computer work open all night long. And the guy would like literally spend all night long. He just did it for like years and years and years. And then went to Berkeley and did the same thing. And he would just, it took him years and years and years to just like completely divulge himself and just completely give himself to be completely obsessed with what he did. And at the end, you know, he took on the task of rewriting Unix, which, I mean, you know, if you guys know computers, you know that Unix was a huge thing as well. So, but it took him like I said, can I go back to the 10,000 hour rule? It took him like hours and hours and hours and years to be able to get to the point where he was able to actually have that kind of success. So like I said, they had an extraordinary amount of opportunity, but they didn't just have opportunity. They were prepared to be able to take advantage of the opportunity. And then so like, for instance, the Beatles, like if they thought they didn't believe in what they had to do, and they didn't go and travel, you know, every week back and forth to and put that commitment in, they never would have been successful. Mm-hmm. Bill Joy never would have been you know, the co-founder of Sun Microsystems, never would have been able to do that. Bill Gates, it talks about Bill Gates and how his success was very similar, how he just had to put in, you know, just so many hours in order to make whatever he did work.
It's just tenaciousness. It's just going after it and just keep chugging along, even though, you know, people may not be hearing you. I'm sure there was, you know, tons of times in the Beatles when they were performing and people just didn't care, or they seemed like they didn't care, and so it got to them. But like, you just keep chugging along, keep moving, and that's where a lot of people just stop. They just stop what they're doing. They're like, yeah, I don't want to put this amount of hours into it. Well, you're not going to be successful then, and that's the bottom line.
Yep. I mean, really. I mean, so I mean, there's tons of more stories about this. It even kind of gives you like an outline of all the different people and how much money they were worth, and it even tells you when they were born, and it's a very interesting book. I'm going to kind of make this a short book, so you guys can go out and read it, and maybe we'll do a follow up on this. But there's just so many stories that really but they all go back to the same thing. They all go back to like where you were from, what opportunities you were given. And then the opportunity, did you actually take the opportunity, or did you just like, you know, not see it as an opportunity? I think a lot of times opportunities come to us all the time and we don't see it as an opportunity. We just think somebody wants us to do something for them. We just think somebody wants them to work for us, or whatever the case is. But just like all these people, they took the opportunity and they worked their butt off and they kept this rigorous routine for an extraordinary amount of time before they actually got some kind of a break. And again, like even that break is another opportunity that is given to us. And a lot of times if we don't work enough, a lot of times we're so close to being successful and we just give up or we just quit. And I think you have to keep that belief that whatever you're doing is worth it, or you are going to quit. And a lot of times our faith is just so little, and we need to raise that level of faith and raise that level of belief in the people that we work with and the people, and then whatever it is that we're doing. Even going back to the story about the Beatles, when they left, they were good. They were good enough to like get a gig, right? But when they came back, it was like they were a polished machine. After 2 years of playing that rigorously and doing all that hard work, like their skill level had just multiplied by hundreds and hundreds.
Well, that amount of time, that amount of time is like, it's almost like practice. Yeah, you're performing in front of a live audience, but it's all practice to put them on a worldwide stage that, millions of people know their name now, and they don't know this story that you're telling right now. They know the story of the Beatles are one of the greatest bands that's ever lived, and everybody knows who they are, everybody knows their music, but that 10,000 hours is what put them onto that stage and put them in that spotlight. And that's what a lot of people just look past, I think.
Yeah, and I even see this in my own business sometimes where people just get so frustrated with other people, and we just if you just give yourself some time and work together and work through this, you'll find out that you'll be a lot more successful on the other side, and just understanding that it takes that in order to make things smooth, in order to get up in front of a set and just know what the other person's going to do and just automatically do it. It takes some time. You can't just expect this to happen overnight and in 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months, or sometimes even 2 or 3 years. Sometimes it takes 5-10 years to get really smooth with something. So focus on that. Number one, focus on being thankful for the opportunity, looking for the opportunities that come up. Know that whatever opportunity that you do take, it's going to take more work than you probably think in order for it to be a success. But then always be looking for a tipping point. And it's actually funny because this guy's next book, Malcolm Gladwell, one of his next books is called The Tipping Point. And I think that's a really good book too. And that kind of talks about that point in which you've done the hard work, but be looking for that tipping point. A lot of times companies that have these huge breaks and all of a sudden like Microsoft or Apple, or they had tipping points in their business where all of a sudden now things just started churning and really I talk about momentum a lot, and I think that's really what that is. Once you get momentum, a momentum will fix a lot of the problems that you think you have, and you don't really have any problems when you're just getting started. It's just that you don't have enough momentum, and if you have enough momentum, it'll actually fix most of the problems that you think you have. So like I said, there's lots of stories in this book, but like I said, I think it really focuses on focusing on the opportunity and being thankful for it. I like I said, I hope this helps you guys. I hope you guys would read this book, and like I said, I think it's definitely, I like Malcolm Gladwell a lot, and all of his books that I've read have been really awesome.
Awesome stuff, and thank you for sharing that with us, Tom. Thank you for being on the podcast today. We look forward to having you back soon. All right, so that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening in. And if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Now, we got one more thing for you guys that we need your help with. We need your guys' opinions on our podcast. We want to know what you guys want, what you guys are looking for, what you guys need. So do us a favor, go to goodsuccess.com/survey. We have a survey. It's a very short, simple, to-the-point survey that you guys can go on there and help us out. We want to give you guys and provide some value to you guys that you guys are going to like a lot and that you can use and you just be interested in and share with other people. So do us a big favor, go to goodsuccess.com/survey, help us out there. We would love for you guys to do that. And our mastermind, if you guys are interested in our Good Success Mastermind, go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind to find out more information there about that. Our next event is in February 6th, 7th, and 8th. We're actually hosting this one in Dallas, Texas. So nobody wants to be in Chicago in February. So we're going to be going down to Texas for that. And you guys, like I said, go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind. We bring an elite group of real estate investors into the room. They all collaborate. We network. We have a great time with each other, build relationships, solve each other's problems, give value the entire time. It's an awesome experience. And our room is growing so much. And we love where it's gone, where it's at right now, and the amount of people, the value of the people, the quality of them that are in the room right now. So go ahead and check it out, goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Thank you guys for listening, and remember, whether you're looking to survive, thrive, or matter, our goal is to provide the tools to reach your vision. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.